happy occasion, and hopefully as the evening goes on, we'll get a chance to talk to each and every one of you. And I can tell you some stories about Molly, perhaps. I don't want to say, you know, to the whole group, but that could happen. Kathy's been preparing for this for a number of weeks, actually for months and years. Actually, I haven't lifted a finger to do anything, but I have had to watch you prepare for weeks and weeks. And the deal is, the quid pro quo is that I get to say whatever I want to say for the next couple of minutes because I've had to watch all these preparations for so long. And the first thing that I want to say is that I liked Nicholas Labriciosa from the moment that I met him. I don't know if you didn't realize that between behind my stern veneer and some criticism and cynicism, that you didn't realize that, but I really liked you from the moment that I met you. With regard to Nick is a man of great intelligence. He's a very, very kind man. He's a man of integrity, a man of great character. And Kathy and I couldn't be more pleased that Molly has chosen Nick as a husband. And I think all of that is a tribute to his wonderful parents, Sal and Kathy, who did such a wonderful job. Oh, yeah.
I'm eating clams.
Sal, that basket you were supposed to get with the sopressata, I thought that sopressata was for Nick and Brian. If I had known it was for you, I would not have eaten it.
He's paid heavily.
I paid heavily for that. I've heard about that ever since I did it. I did want to offer just a few thoughts, you know, and I want you to know that lawyers really do not have original thoughts. All we do is we quote decisions of judges or sometimes quotes of famous thinkers, but we really don't have any original thoughts, so I apologize for that. But I do want to offer some thoughts tonight about love and marriage, because that's what we're talking about. And the first thing I would say about love is that love is just a word until you find someone that gives it meaning. And I think that that's what happened with Nick and with Molly. They truly were lucky to find the one person who gave meaning to the word love. And we've known that as we've observed that as they're through their undergraduate years, through their years in graduate school, as they've embarked upon their careers, and it's just a wonderful thing for us to watch. They say that when you love someone, you just know it. When you love someone, you just know it. If you have to ask yourself, do you love someone, you probably don't. But when you love someone, you just know it. And that certainly has been the case, and that's what we've seen from as the relationship between Nick and Molly has blossomed throughout the years. Now, one of the things that they say about marriage, and this is it's sort of a funny or a plain analogy, is that they ask of a husband and wife, are they a good fit? Are they a good fit? Will they fit together? Do they complement each other? And one of the things that people say is that for every pot, there is a perfect lid. For every pot, there is a perfect lid. And I know that this is true because I found my perfect lid 36 years ago. Yeah. And I know that Sal found his perfect lid a number of years ago, not that long ago.
Many years ago.
Now it's Nick's turn to have found his perfect lid. The only thing I'd say, Nick, is she's going to keep a tight lid on it, so you're going to have to. But one of the things about this is that again, being an older Irishman, I tend to get a little bit sentimental. I tend to get a little stern and somber. And I wanted to combat that tonight because I think that's a problem with our Irish heritage, from living under thatched roofs, or the problems with pubs, or the problems we have.
Running out of potatoes.
But it's a thing that's in the blood of the DNA, and I wanted to combat that. So I thought I could do that by telling a story about Molly. Now, there are certain stories.
Oh, no.
There are certain stories I can't tell. I really won't tell the story about how Molly tried to kidnap the cute boat boy at the amusement park. I don't want to say that, Molly. I won't tell that story. It's too embarrassing.
She was like 6.
I'm not going to tell the embarrassing story of the milk involving your sister. That was an unfortunate incident. We're not going to talk about that tonight. Or the time that she attacked the defenseless soccer player and kicking her on the. We can't talk about that. So rather than those stories, there's one story that I think relates to love and marriage pretty clearly, and Kathy and I always enjoyed taking the kids to Washington, D.C., and we enjoyed taking them to see the monuments, the museums, and the fireworks on the mall of the 4th of July. And then school vacations, we would tend to take the kids there. And if any of you have had the pleasure of vacationing with Kathy, you know that when you're on vacation with Kathy, you're not simply moseying around or ambling around, meandering around. You are running, and you're going from one place to another. So this one time we're there with the kids, and I think Brian is probably 12 years old, and Molly is 10, and Sydney is 8, and we're going between the museum, the Science Museum, the National History Museum, and it's very, very warm, and we decide that we've got to get into finally I convinced Kathy that we're going to get into a taxi for a taxi ride.
Are you telling this?
Yes, I am. So we get into the taxi. So we pile into the taxi, and Kathy gets into the back, and Brian and Molly and Cindy pile into the back, and I have to get in the front of the taxi because that's no other room for me. So I get into the taxi, and I look at the taxi driver, the cab driver. And he's a very nice guy. He's a Jamaican man with dreadlocks, and I'm looking at him. He seems like a nice fellow, and all of a sudden I realize that this is going to be a very unusual cab ride because he's not just a cab driver, but he's a poet. So as he's driving the cab, and he's steering, and he reads from his book of poetry while he's riding home in the cab. So he's driving the cab, and he's looking at the poetry, and he's driving the cab, and he's looking at the poetry, he's driving the cab, looking at the poetry, and Kathy and I are just looking at each other saying, I just hope he doesn't hit anything, because he's reading while the cab driver. Now what this guy figured was, he probably thought he could get a fare from us and also sell one of his books of poetry. But the problem was, he didn't know that I was, being one of the cheaper people in the world, I was not going to buy a book of poetry from a poet cab driver poet, or whatever he was. So we're driving along, and we're going down the Constitution Avenue, we're going down Pennsylvania Avenue, and finally we come to a red light. And this is the truth. This is the truth. Brian knows. This is the truth. Where's Brian? Brian. The cab driver goes, and he stops at the red light, and he turns around, and he looks right at Molly. Doesn't look at anybody else. He looks right at Molly. And this is what he said. He looks there, he goes, marriage, the roller coaster of life. He says it again. He goes, marriage, the roller coaster of life. And now, being a child of the 60s, I said, whoa. This is heavy. This guy must have some cosmic knowledge about marriage, or about, there's some type of message from some higher power that's being transmitted to Molly, and this guy is just a vessel transmitting his knowledge to Molly about marriage to Molly. So we finally get to the end of the ride, and we get out, and I don't buy the book, but we get out of it, we pay the fare, and thinking about it. I start to think about it. This guy really knows what he's talking about, I guess. So what was that about? Now, we didn't look at Brian. He didn't say, Brian, marriage, the roller coaster of life.
Yeah.
He didn't say that, right? He didn't say it to Sidney, because at that time, Sidney would have spit right in his eye. But I'm starting to think, does this guy actually know what he's talking about? Because by that time, I had been married to Kathy for about 20 years. So that if the guy knew anything, or if he had any insight from a higher power or cosmic knowledge, he should have turned to Kathy and said, Kathy, marriage, the roller coaster of life. And Kathy would have said, you got that right. But he didn't. So in thinking about it, now there's some married couples out there, and I know you don't want to admit it, but that cab driver was onto something. Because marriage is a roller coaster, and life, in fact, is a roller coaster. And, because both in marriage, they say, for better, for worse. They've been saying that for hundreds of years, and they mean that for a reason. So I guess what I take from this story of the cab driver is that, with marriage and with life, there are good things that happen, there are great things that happen, there are bad things that happen, there are sad things that happen. Life deals you a whole lot of different things, and specifically, Kathy and I couldn't be happier that Molly has chosen this man to stand by her side to deal with both the good and all the trials and tribulations that life can deliver. We're so happy in her choice of Nick that we know that they're going to have a wonderful marriage. Now, what Thoreau said is that the only remedy for love is to love more, and the only remedy for life I think, is to love more. And I know that when life deals a harsh deal to Molly and Nick, hopefully it won't happen, but when it does happen, I know that they will both respond by loving each other more and more, and I know that their love is going to grow through the years, and that they're going to have a wonderful marriage and a wonderful union. So I guess that's the message we got from the cab guy. So one more thing, I've been too long. I just have one more thing that I wanted to say. I've been totally verbose, but
This is more than he's talked in the last year.
I just wanted to say one more thing. I was talking to Marcus, and I said, Marcus, we have to give these kids some type of knowledge. What can we impart to them as they go off into married life? I said, we have two great cultures here that Rhode Island is famous for. The union of the Irish culture and the Italian culture. Rhode Island is famous throughout the nation for that. I said, maybe there's something from Irish culture. Maybe there's something from Italian culture. We can give them some wisdom. So I said to Marcus, wisdom, Marcus. Where can the wisdom come from? Where does the wisdom come from, Marcus? And Marcus said,
from the Greeks.
not Greek. That was a surprise, Liz, that he said that, right? So you have to turn to the Greek philosophers to say, what can we learn about love from the Greek philosophers? And Aristotle said that love consists of one soul inhabiting two bodies. Love consists of one soul inhabiting two bodies. And as Kathy and I have watched the relationship of Nick and Molly evolve, it certainly is true that love does in fact consist of one soul inhabiting two bodies. And with that in mind, I'd ask you to raise your glasses in a toast to Molly and to Nick. And Don. Yeah, my toast. Wait for the toast. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Thirsty.
He is a half-divided, blessed man, left to be finished by the likes of she. And she, a divided excellence, whose true perfection lies in him. To Molly and Nick.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That must be. That must be
Now you
Greek.
can
He had to be Greek.
Easily.